Hey everybody, and welcome to Bits of Board, where we're talking board games, miniatures, cards, and dice. My name's Michael, and today we finally start our journey through Kingdom Death Monster. Today is the prologue, where we're going to get a bit of an introductory look at some of the gameplay, some of the rules, setting up for an immense campaign, I promise you. Let's just get stuck into it. We're going to do the story elements and stuff as well, so you get a proper feel for this one. Let's do it.
Once upon a time, there was a place of carved stone faces. A man with a lantern lay sleeping a dreamless sleep. The man knew nothing. One day the man woke up. He rubbed the dried ink caked over his eyes and opened them. Around him, he saw other people stirring, and beyond, a horizon of unbroken darkness. A woman approached the man with the lantern. Her soft hand reached out to him. They had no words. They were a mystery to each other. Suddenly, a monster emerged from the darkness, its eyes wild with hunger. It attacked. The people were no match for the monster. It tore their flesh and crushed their bones between its teeth. Some it devoured whole. Overcome with terror and grief, the man with the lantern collapsed to the ground. Cold stone noses pushed into his side. There was no escape. But the man did not want to die. Desperately grasping at the cold stone faces, he felt a crack and tore at it with all his might. A piece of stone came free. It was sharp and deadly. The man with the lantern scrambled to his feet, his weapon clenched in his fist. He took a deep breath and roared into the darkness. Somewhere in the place of stone faces, nameless men stand together. They have nothing but a need to survive and a lantern to light their struggle.
Now, there's not much to say about the prologue chapter. Our survivors start with next to nothing. They have cloth around their waists, and in their hands the founding stone, which they will use as a weapon to defeat this monstrous foe. The lion will begin this prologue, as he is ready to kill. Now, the prologue lion functions a little differently to all the other monster encounters in this game. He has a set AI deck and a first set move, meaning he is just about to show how powerful he is against these survivors. He has the first activation, and we draw the top card of the AI deck to show his first move. This is the claw attack, which chooses the closest threat facing and in range. Now, each of the survivors meet these requirements, and usually there would be a monster controller that gets to decide these sorts of decisions. In this case, seeing as we're playing a little bit solo, there's going to be no monster controller. Basically, we're going to have our monster rush forward and take on the large bearded survivor. Now, the lion's attack, it's a speed 2 attack with a 2+ accuracy, meaning we're going to be rolling 2 dice, and each of those 2 dice will hit on a 2+. That is any number from 2 to a lantern 10, meaning a 1 in 10 chance that this is going to miss. Any hit will do 1 damage to our survivor. Let's roll. We get 2 7s, and that means 2 hits on our bearded survivor. We roll 2 location dice to determine where the hits will occur. We have 1 to the waist and 1 to the chest. Now, like I said, our survivors start with next to nothing, but they have their instinct and 1 point of survival to spend. This means our survivor could dodge one of these hits, preventing all damage to the location. And because our survivor has that 1 point of armor on the waist location, he's going to dodge the chest attack there. We reduce the armor at the waist location, and the survivors have a chance to activate. Players will determine the best order of actions between themselves, but for right now, we're going to move our redhead survivor up a space on the map here. She's going to be attacking the monster's blind spot, which is directly behind him, but she's also moving out of the way to allow easy access for another survivor to jump in. Our survivor will be attacking with the founding stone, which is a 2-speed weapon, meaning we're going to be rolling 2 dice. Each hit would normally land on a 7+. However, because our survivor's in the blind spot, she's going to make this roll on a 6+. Let's see how we go. We have a 6 and another 6. That is 2 hits, so we will draw 2 hit locations from the lion's hit location deck. We draw hit locations, the first of which is predetermined by the prologue. We have the strange hand. The second hit location we draw is the beast's paw. Now, our survivor can attempt to wound any of these locations in any order, rolling 1 dice for each. Players should take into account any failures that may occur if they're unable to make the wound. Some of these will place the monster out of reach for any further wound attempts, so it's best to tackle these in a good order. These both have failure repercussions on them, but none of them will take the monster out of range, so we'll simply wound them from left to right, starting with the strange hand. To successfully wound a location, we must roll the d10 again, aiming for the monster's toughness or higher. As you can see here, the monster's toughness is 6, so we'll be going for a 6 or higher. But we also get to take into account any strength that the weapon has. The founding stone has a strength of 1, which means we will make this wound on a 5+. Let's roll for the strange hand. A 3. We fail at this location, so we resolve the failure on the card. Instinctively striking back, the white lion's oddly human hand darts forward. Perform basic action targeting the attacker. The white lion turns to face the attacker and rolls 2 dice, again hitting on a 2+. We get a 3 and a 9, 2 hits, so we roll our 2 hit location dice. 1 to the foot, 1 to the hand. The player may choose to spend survival to dodge one of these hits, but in this case we're going to take a light wound to each of these locations. Light wounds don't do anything too bad right now, but any further wounds to these locations will result in a heavy wound and some much worse consequences. We continue resolving the attack. Aiming for a 5+, we get another 3 and another failure. Perform basic action, target the attacker. This attack gains 2 damage. The lion rolls 2 dice, a 4 and a 3, both hitting. We roll 2 locations to determine where the damage is going. 1 to the chest and 1 to the waist. Our survivor will spend the survival to dodge the chest hit, but will take all 3 points of damage to the waist. We remove 1 point for armor, and they receive a light and a heavy wound. The heavy wound lays our survivor down, and they are knocked down until the end of the monster's next activation. We continue with our survivor's activations, moving our bearded survivor back into the blind spot behind the lion. He attacks with the founding stone, and we roll 2 dice. A 9 and a 4, 1 hit, 1 miss. We draw the next hit location, the beast's flank. There are no failure marks on this card, which means we're just going for the wound. Our survivor rolls to wound, succeeding on a 5+. He's successful with an 8. We remove the top card from the monster's AI deck and place it in the wound stack, reducing his available actions and his hit points. When the monster has no remaining AI cards and receives a last wound, he's dead. Survivor moves into their attacking location behind the white lion and attacks again with the founding stone. A 6 and an 8, 2 hits. We draw 2 hit location cards, the beast's femur and the straining neck. These are great locations because failing to wound will not cause any negative effects. We begin with the beast's femur. The 5 is enough to cause a wound, so we remove another card from the lion's AI deck, placing it in the wound stack. We then attempt the straining neck. A 6, not enough to cause a critical wound, but enough to cause another wound, removing another card from the AI deck. Our last survivor makes his action. Because there's no space left in the beast's blind spot, he moves over just a notch to make his attack. Now, aside from the founding stone, our survivors may attempt to wound with unarmed combat. Doing so is less accurate and less powerful, but it allows our survivors to essentially double our chances of causing a critical wound at this point in combat. Usually, critical wounds are only made by rolling a lantern 10 when attempting to wound, but the deadly attribute associated with the fist and tooth fighting art allows us to make critical wounds on a 9 or a lantern 10. These afford us wonderful opportunities to inflict even more wounds on our foes, shifting the tide of battle in favor of our damned survivors. Fist and Tooth succeeds in hitting on an 8+. We get a 6 and a lantern 10. Now this doesn't do anything right now, but it does afford us that hit. So we draw a hit location card from the top of the deck. We gain the Beast's Heel. Note there are no failures on the card, but it does have a critical wound location. But if it's successful, we reduce the lion's effectiveness throughout combat. We roll for the Beast's Heel. Alright. Of Lantern 10. The Beast's Heel is critically wounded, and he gains the persistent injury, ruptured tendon. When the white lion starts its movement, roll 1d10. On a result of 1, the white lion is knocked down. We place this card nearby as a reminder for its persistent injury. With that, the white lion begins his next activation. We draw the top card from the AI deck. Chomp. The target is the closest threat facing and in range. Now, survivors aren't counted as a threat if they're knocked down, so the closest survivor in range is going to be our standing survivor over here. He turns to face him and makes the attack. Chomp is a speed 1 attack and hitting on a 2+. It only does 1 damage, but it has an after hit effect. Headhunter means that this attack will always hit the head location. We roll for the white lion's attack. Hits on a 4+ and hits the head of our survivor. He chooses to use his survival to dodge, which is a good call because any hit to the head location can be extremely detrimental for the survivors. That's the end of our monster's activation, so we stand up any fallen survivors and we begin their activation. Our redhead survivor moves into the blind spot of the lion, this time with Fist and Tooth. She gains the bonus for standing in the monster's blind spot, so this attack will hit on a 7+. A 2 and a 6, no luck. Our bearded survivor moves behind the white lion. Not taking any chances, he attacks with the founding stone. A 6 and a 9, 2 hits. Our first hit location is the fleshy gut. And we draw a trap card. Trap cards are extremely unfortunate because they mean any successful hits in this attack are null and void. Clever ploy. The attacker is caught in the white lion's ruse and is savagely mauled. Attacker is doomed. Perform basic action targeting the attacker. We roll 2 dice, hitting on a 2+. We roll a 4 and a 1, so only one of these attacks will hit. We roll 1 hit location dice, and we hope it's not somewhere important. The chest location. Our bearded survivor scores 1 light wound to the chest. After resolving the trap location, we pick up all of the discarded hit location cards and shuffle them back into the deck, meaning that the trap location is now available to draw again. Our survivor here will move over, making room for the next survivor in the blind spot, and they attack with the founding stone. An 8 and a 6, 2 hits. The beast's femur and the straining neck again. Good shuffling. No negative failure effects, so we roll for the beast's femur. We score an 8, again reducing the white lion's ability to make attacks and its hit points. Next we roll for the straining neck. We roll a 4, not enough to make the wound. Our last survivor will make their action, this time attacking with fist and tooth. We get 1 hit and 1 miss. We draw the soft belly. No negative failures here, so let's aim for that critical wound. And we roll a 9. We score a critical wound on that 9 thanks to the deadly attribute on our fist and tooth attack. Critical wound. Gain 1 random white lion resource, and he gains a persistent injury, organ trail. The white lion's intestines hang from the wound on its gut, dragging on the floor. At the start of every monster turn, before it draws an AI card, roll 1d10. On a result of 1, the monster suffers 1 wound. We place it down next to the beast's heel, reminding us of both the ruptured tendon and now organ trail. We make a quick detour over to the white lion resource deck, and we draw a resource to add to our supply. We get the Curious Hand. When you gain this, a random survivor gains +1 insanity. Now there are cards in the game that allow us to do this, but we'll just do this really quickly with dice. Odds, evens. Odds, evens. Our redhead survivor gains 1 insanity. The white lion begins his activation, and we roll for his organ trail persistent injury. A 6. He's okay this round. We draw the top card of the AI deck, and we have Enraged, which is a mood card. When this comes into play, draw an AI card. Well, we've got another one in the pile. This one is Maul. While Enraged is in play, White Lion gains +1 damage token per monster level. This means he's now going to be dealing at minimum 2 damage per hit. When a survivor suffers any dismembered severe injury or is killed, discard Enraged. So this will go if he, pretty much kills a guy. We now resolve Maul, which is a speed 2 attack. Victim of grab last round, closest knockdown survivor in range. We have no target, and because we have no target, he resolves his sniff. We look on the back of his basic action card. The white lion sniffs and ends its turn. Until the end of the next round, all survivors are now threats, despite any effects that say otherwise. When a level 3 white lion performs this skill, it gains +1 accuracy token. Thankfully, this isn't a level 3 white lion, and the game goes on. Ending his turn, the monster has no cards left in his AI deck, so we take all discarded cards and shuffle them up. Our tall survivor begins the round, attacking with the founding stone. A roll of 3 and 9, 1 hit. We draw the beasts back. If we fail to wound, the monster is going to move forward in a straight line, cancelling any hits now out of range. All survivors passed over suffer grab, which means they get knocked over and taken for a ride. Let's hope we don't fail this wound. We score a lantern 10, alright. So we get a critical wound. We cancel any reflexes on this card, and the white lion gains a -1 accuracy token. With this token in hand, the lion is now going to have to roll 1 better than stated on the card. And we discard the top card of the AI deck to the wound stack. Our next survivor attacks with the founding stone. A 6 and an 8. 2 hits. We draw 2 hit locations from the deck, the beast's tricep and the beast's elbow. Both of these have failures, but only one will put him out of range, so we'll resolve the beast's tricep first. A successful wound on a 5+. Let's see how we go. A 7. Very good. We discard the next card from the AI deck, meaning he has 2 hit points left. Next, we go for the beast's elbow. We score a 9. Had we been attacking with fist and tooth, this would have been a critical wound. We do not resolve the failure, and we lose the last card of the white lion from the AI deck. This means that any future activations the white lion takes will be with their basic action. Our redhead survivor attacks next. A 4 and a 6. Only 1 hit here. So we draw the top card from the hit location deck. The beast's knee. No failures here, so we roll. Rolling a 4, we are unsuccessful wounding, meaning it comes down to our last survivor. Now here, our player will have to make a decision. Do we take on the white lion with hand-to-hand combat, as has been going on this whole game, and try and make this last wound? Or do we use the founding stone for the Hail Mary of all combat? We can spend the activation to sling the stone from anywhere on the board. Archiving this card, we go for 1 automatic hit that inflicts a critical wound. Founding stones are extremely valuable in this game, and they can turn the tide of any impossible fight. Knowing this, our bearded survivor holds on to the founding stone and makes an attack, but not by throwing it. An 8 and a lantern 10, 2 hits. So close. The beast's maw and the beast's paw, both of which have fails, none of which will move the monster out of range, so we roll for the beast's paw first. And with this 8, the white lion is dead. Our survivors are triumphant, and with this victory, they reap the rewards. The survivors gain 4 basic resources from the basic resource deck. We gain a monster bone, another monster bone, something, and some love juice. We also gain 4 white lion resources, the great cat bones, the eye of cat, and the shimmering mane. Add this to our curious hand that we gained through the fight, and we are well stocked for the settlement phase. But more on that in just a sec. First, we continue the story.
The survivors wander, drawn to a blooming light in the distance. They find the serene comfort of a towering pile of lanterns and a small collection of scared people. On a deep, instinctual level, they know this area is safe, and they make it their home.
We move into the settlement phase, where we handle the development of the settlement as well as a little bit of bookkeeping. After setting up the settlement, we move to the survivor's return phase, where we heal any light and heavy wounds from existing survivors and gain 1 hunt experience. Returning survivors in this first return also gain 1 survival. Next, we gain endeavors, 1 for each of our returning survivors, and we'll use those as currency as we move further through the settlement phase. Next, we update the timeline, filling in the first year box, and now we resolve the first day settlement event and the returning survivors story event, as we've already just done. During the first day settlement event, we rolled an 8, gaining 10 unnamed survivors. In the returning survivors story event, first we resolve our first words. We nominate 1 survivor to step forward and begin speaking. Our bearded survivor steps forward and we fill in 1 box, the first box on his courage tracker. The survivors talk of the white lion and it is added to the quarry list, meaning we can hunt it in future years. We gain the language innovation, which gives us a +1 to our survival limit, meaning we can now have up to 2 survival. During the hunt phase, survivors will also gain the encourage survival action, which means they can spend a survival to encourage 1 other survivor to stand up. Next, we build the innovation deck, adding all language consequence cards. We add ammonia, drums, hovel, inner lantern, paint, and symposium. We shuffle these together to create the initial innovation deck, and this will grow throughout the game as we gain more innovation cards. Finally, our nominated survivor names the Lantern Horde, the centerpiece of our settlement location. He gains 1 understanding, but must skip the next hunt phase. Next, we update the death count, and seeing as though all of our survivors made it through the last hunt, we don't have to do anything there. We check milestone story events, but as our survivors haven't had much experience yet, there is nothing. We move on to the development phase, where we can invest in our settlement, buying new armors and weapons for our survivors, and prepare for the upcoming horrors. It is recommended that in the first round, you build the bonesmith, skinnery, and organ grinder. Each one of these will cost 1 of our endeavors gained at the beginning of this phase. We'll do this spending 3 endeavors, but gaining 3 settlement locations: the organ grinder, the skinner, and the bonesmith. Each one of these has its own development specialization. The organ grinder grants us consumables and lucky charms, also opening up augury, where we can create new life in our settlement. The skinnery opens up mainly new armors, but a few weapons and support items as well. Finally, the bonesmith specializes in weapons and allows us to craft special tools that we can make use of later in the game. This is where we make the most decisions throughout the settlement phase. We need to figure out how to spend all the resources that we collected from the white lion in this case, and how best to use them so that we don't regret our decisions later. Right now, the organ grinder probably doesn't hold something that we need, so I'll pop that to the side just so we can have a look at the armor and weapon options, the skinnery and bonesmith. We currently have 4 cards that have the hide keyword up the top, meaning we could almost build an entire set of rawhide armor. Thankfully, we also have the shimmering mane, which we can archive to gain 2 basic hide resources, meaning this whole collection here could get us 1 full set. We also have bones and organs that we could use at the bonesmith. However, there are two extremely rare and valuable cards covered in here, the Eye of Cat and the Shimmering Mane, and it may not be the smartest decision to use these for such basic equipment. The Eye of Cat can be used later to build a wonderful support item that allows you to actually control the decks of the monsters. The Shimmering Mane can also be used to get the lion headdress when we unlock the Caterium. What to do, what to do. Let's hold on to these items here. Let's deck out with 3 items of armor from the Skinnery. And we'll go the Bone Blade and the Bone Axe, using our questionable resource as an organ. Another option is to hold on to some of our resources so that we can innovate. Now, innovating is extremely important, as we'll be drawing a card, or we'll be drawing 2 cards in this case, from the innovation deck and keeping 1. This is the main way that we can improve our settlement, and the decision to miss this should not be taken lightly. 1 hide, 1 bone, and 1 organ. We spend our final endeavor and we innovate. Give it a shuffle and we draw 2 cards. Inner Lantern and Symposium. Now, Inner Lantern, the settlement finds the light within. All survivors gain the Surge survival action. Surge allows you to spend survival to gain an additional activation or action during the hunt phase, meaning you could potentially attack twice. Symposium increases the survival limit by 1, so we would be up to 3 there. When a survivor innovates, draw an additional 2 innovation cards to choose from. This is going to be a very good option, allowing us to choose from additional innovation cards, making sure we get the ones that we need. However, Surge would be extremely useful in the battles to come. We'll be innovating Symposium today. That way, we will never miss out on the cards we need. As a result of having innovated Symposium, we add the Storytelling innovation card into our innovation deck, as it has a Symposium consequence. Oh. We spend our white fur, aiming for the rawhide headband and rawhide vest. The rawhide vest and the headband, they both give 1 armor to each location, being chest and head, and we gain here the ability to reveal the top 2 AI cards, placing them back on top of the deck in any order. So we get a little bit of freedom when dealing with our monsters there. And we'll archive the skull to get a bone blade. Now, I forgot to say, but when you gain this, a survivor of your choice gains +1 insanity. Let's give this to our, language innovating survivor number 1. That's going to give him a little bit of armor for the brain and also draws him 1 step closer to becoming insane. Now, I've also got the love juice here, which we could use as an organ as a part of crafting, or we could archive the card to initiate the intimacy story event. This may actually give us a new survivor, but for the moment, we'll hold on to it. Alright, with our crafting out of the way, we add them down here, and we move on to the next phase, which is prepare departing survivors, because guess what? It is time to hunt again. Now, currently we've only got 3 survivors that are ready to go out on the hunt, so we're going to need to name a 4th. So, homework guys, I need a name and agenda for our new starting survivor, and if you don't mind, go ahead and name the other 4 survivors. We've got the bearded survivor, the tall survivor, the poorly painted redhead survivor, and then our dark-haired survivor. All right, there it is. That's our campaign, so we are done. Okay, that's the prologue. That is a tiny weeny section of this immense game. It's not always going to be fighting white lions, and it's not always going to be that easy. In fact, it's not always going to be that static. As you probably saw there, there was a lot of just standing around, moving a little bit, hitting the monster, and then hoping for the best with the rolls kind of thing, but it ends up being so much more as this game continues, and a lot less predictable as well. So we move into Lantern Year number 2 in the next video, which will be popping up as soon as I can put it together. This is a definitely tricky series to be doing for me. Now, this run through the prologue, you may have noticed some trick photography in there, and I just wanted to give us the best chance of having a successful campaign where I can show you just about as much of this game as I can. So forgive me for that. There'll be less and less of that as the game goes on. Alright, so you guys have got some homework. You've got to pitch some names for me down in the comments, because coming up with names is hard. So we've got the 4 starting survivors and 1 new survivor. We don't know if they're male or female yet. That is up to you guys. So chuck it down in the comments down there. If you've got anything else to say down there while you're there, go for it as well. Other than that, we didn't name the settlement, did we? We'll call it Onyx, because I once wrote a song called Onyx Land, and every time I have the opportunity to call something Onyx, I do. So let's go with that. Other than that, that's probably about it for today. So thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions or want to say something, comments below. Don't forget the names. Other than that, we're done. So my name's Michael. This is Bits Aboard. We'll catch you next time.